Hi, I'm continuing my reviews on the Friday the 13th series with Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, this was released in 1981. It was released the year after the first film was released, and the first Friday the 13th movie was a huge success, and they weren't expecting the movie to be as successful as it was, and of course, a sequel was almost inevitable, so they made a sequel, and in my opinion, this is actually a great sequel, in my opinion. Like, I actually hold this, like, right up there with the first one. Basically, it begins a month after the events of the first film, and it begins with the character of Alice, who is the main character in the first movie, who ended up killing Pamela Voorhees at the end. And, but what happens now is, now this is something that some people might complain about, but the character of Alice does get killed off within the first 10 minutes of the movie. So some people might not like that, but I didn't mind it that much. But then it jumps ahead to 5 years later, and now Camp Cystal Lake is shut down, and there's this camp counselor training center on the same lake as Camp Cystal Lake, and what happens is now all these camp counselors are going to this, like, camp counselor training center, and what happens is now there's another killer on the loose who's stalking and killing each of the camp counselors off one by one. And as it turns out, the killer is actually Jason, who is the boy who is said to be dead in the first movie. So that's actually kind of cool for the time. I mean, like, at the time, I don't think people knew that Jason, who is a character who is said to be dead in the first movie, not too many people knew that Jason was going to end up being the killer in the sequel. So that's actually a pretty cool idea. Like, that's pretty cool how they did that. Now, in the movie, it's actually implied that maybe Jason never actually did die at the lake, and maybe he lived and has been hiding out in the woods ever since. But that actually gets kind of contradicted in some of the later sequels, where they kind of go in a supernatural direction, suggesting that Jason was some kind of supernatural being. But in this movie, Jason, for the most part, is a human. You know, the movie is directed by Steve Miner, who is the associate producer for the first movie, and he also produced the movie. Steve Miner, he went on to direct Friday the 13th Part 3, he directed a movie called House, he directed Halloween H2O, and he directed the Day of the Dead remake, which I have not seen yet, and I don't really intend on seeing that, because that movie looks god-awful, but yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 is a very good sequel. The music in the movie is once again done by Harry Manfredini, and yeah, so it's a great sequel in my opinion. Now there's a lot of controversy over who actually played Jason in this movie. The guy who's credited for playing Jason throughout the whole movie is an actor named Warrington Gillette, but as it turns out, he only played Jason at the very end of the movie. Now in the movie, Jason wears a potato sack over his head, and the actor of Warrington Gillette only played Jason at the end when you see Jason without the potato sack over his head. But apparently throughout most of the movie, when you see Jason with the potato sack on his head, Jason's actually played by an actor named Steve Dash, I believe. So there's a whole lot of, so there's this big thing of controversy over, like, who actually played Jason in the movie. But yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2, there's really not much else I can say about this movie. I think it's a great sequel. But I know some people actually say it's one of their least favorites in the series. I don't really know why. I personally think it's right up there with the first one. But one thing I will say is a lot of the kill sequences in this movie were apparently taken from a Mario Baba movie which came out 10 years earlier. I never seen this Mario Baba movie and I forgot what the name of it was, but apparently a lot of the kill sequences in this were taken from that movie. But I've never seen that, so I don't know, so I can't comment too much on that, but yeah. Friday the 13th Part 2. If you've seen the first one and you haven't seen this one, well, see it. So my next movie review will be on Friday the 13th Part 3.